Hi, I'm Carole Robinson. Welcome to this edition of County Happenings, where we find out what's happening in the county when we talk to the county mayor, Rogers Anderson.
Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing today?
I'm doing fine.
This lovely summer day.
It is that. It's getting to be a hot summer this year,
Yes.
quick.
Yeah. It went from cold and rainy to hot and dry.
Well, it's just around the corner, and I know we'll have a conversation about it next month on our show. But when it gets hot like this, I always think of the fair
Exactly. I do too.
because it is miserable.
Yeah, but it's wonderful.
Oh, it is. A lot of fun, 9 days of fun.
Yeah.
And this is our 14th year of having the fair.
Wow, it doesn't seem possible. It doesn't seem possible.
Well, it doesn't seem possible when you think about there was 8 or 10 people sitting around. We were trying to find ways to better utilize the Ag Center and to get people exposed to the Ag Center. And so we were thinking maybe in the area of products that people raise and kind of what we refer to now as the farmer's market. We were kind of thinking in those areas, agritourism, something that would generate it. And I don't know who in the back said it, but said,
I think I have an idea who said it.
let's do a fair.
Yeah.
And it'd been gone for 55 years. And so we took another year to plan for it and visiting fairs and some of the more successful fairs. And so today.
It hit the ground running.
It did. You know, so many people, I know we're going to spend the whole show talking about the fair, and it starts August the 3rd, I think. It's the first Saturday in the month of August.
First Friday, isn't it?
Actually do Friday, but I memorized it by Saturday.
Yeah. Well, because Friday doesn't start till 6.
Have a solid ag fair with a lot of education.
And then it's always a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Excuse me.
And I remember Elvis, one of the first fairs. We had Elvis and DJ Fontana, who played. I believe he played this last year.
I believe you're
at
right.
the fair, and he just passed away
I
this week.
saw that in the paper.
And I thought I'm so glad we had him so many times. We were able to have him so many times. He made that Elvis show so much more special, and now to know that we won't be able to have him.
Well, the fair will be here.
Yes.
And there are some special events. We'll bring the brochures. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
And I encourage people to
I
put it on there.
can't wait to see the brochures.
I can tell you we're bringing a horse riding act this year under the big tent, under a tent.
Wow.
Kind of like what they had out at Opryland last year. And so there'll be nightly
Oh, and
shows.
I went to those shows, and that was nice.
Well, we'll see how good this is. See if it compares up.
Well, I'm sure it'll be great, especially with all the other shows going on. And plenty of things for the kids to do. I understand the 4-H is working really hard to even create more activities for the kids. The whole main floor of the arena, or at least a good portion of the main floor of the arena.
And has nothing to do with the fair, but yesterday, for the very first time, history making, it should have broke in on the nightly news, I think. We now have public sewer out at the Ag Center.
Oh, my Lord.
After 15 years.
No more big old trucks coming in the late
No
night.
more pumping hall coming in late at night. They finally got sewer out into that area. How's that
Now,
for
that
late?
that is newsworthy.
That is newsworthy. I don't hope you're not eating the Wheaties or supper tonight when I just said that. But we are officially hooked up, and they told me it's operational this morning.
Awesome. So we got to go out and use it.
Go on with your story.
No field trips, right?
No field trips.
Well, the budget's coming to a final finality. It's July the
The second Monday in July, that's the only day.
10th or 11th, something like
It's
that.
the only day that we have that is the actual county commission begins at 9 a.m.
And it lasts supposedly all day. Some days it lasts till 5. Some days you're out by 1 o'clock.
It'll be July the 9th.
Tonight.
And this year's budget, we already had the public hearing. We did not have anyone to speak against it or for it. I think there were 3 people in the audience, and they were all office staff. And tax rate is the same that it was last year, so $2.15. That now there is increased revenue and increased spending because you've got increased population.
Right.
And you can have a whole show on that.
Yeah.
But the people will see the tax bill they had last year.
And the
$215.
total, the budget, of the operational budget is
Operational.
about $560 million.
That's correct. It is amazing that that number, when you consider every department, and of course the vast majority of the total 560 some odd $million is in schools. About 63% of the total budget. Then you have to pay for the school buildings. That's called debt service, and you and I would call it a mortgage.
Right.
And that's about 10% more of the budget. So if there's 62, 63, and add another 10% to it,
You're over
about
70%.
72 to 73% of all the monies received go back into our public education, which is what we've always done in this county.
And, well, which is why we have the school systems we have.
Williamson County Schools has great schools, no question. Franklin Special has great schools. We have some outstanding private institutions in
And
our county.
which is nice is the public schools give the private schools a run for their money. I mean, I'm sure all counties have really good private schools, but because our public schools are so good, that forces the private schools to even bump it up.
Well, there's an old expression that I've heard that a rising tide levels out everything.
Yeah.
And I think when you have good public schools, then that drives so many important other things that you have. There's a reason for people coming here. We've had this discussion in the past when my family moved here in the early 80s. There really wasn't a place for the children, our children, to be able to come back and go to work. There weren't those kind of jobs. And I grew up ag, but I certainly, my career's not been ag. I love my garden, I love my flowers, but
And you've got quite a big garden.
but I don't make a living off
No,
of that.
no.
That's my therapy.
You make friends off of
I
that.
make friends off of it because I give it away. But that's my therapy. But when you go back 40 and 50 years ago, there weren't the good jobs that we have today. And so that is a result of public education driving what you're doing. The businesses want to be here so they can have their employees to have good public education. You can have a job in Murfreesboro or Nashville or any of the other surrounding areas, but chances are you're going to look at Williamson County in which to live and raise your family. So your children will go to school here. And over a period of the last 20 years, we've got more and more companies that have moved here, large corporations that bring a lot of good jobs. Now, many of those are the jobs that are out there now. They're 50 or 100 people and under, and they just become part of the fabric here, but they're good jobs.
Right.
And your community has got to have jobs. Williamson County has the lowest unemployment of anybody in the state of Tennessee, and it's been that way for the last several years.
And it's close to being the lowest in the country.
It is very, very low, and you send me things all the time from different organizations to kind of pinpoint the healthiest community or where we stand in births or in disease and all of those. Williamson County, as a county as a whole, gets in that top tier almost in all of those benchmarks. Some of our cities even get higher than the county, Brentwood and Franklin, and particularly for whatever topic that is. And so it's always nice. There's that floating boat in the water concept again, that some of our smaller cities that just can't turn out the kind of numbers that some of your cities like Franklin and Brentwood. But if you go over, if you haven't been to Nolensville lately,
Oh, I have, a couple of times.
you will not realize how much growth is
Oh my
occur.
Yeah.
We've built,
I almost didn't recognize the city when I drove through a couple weeks ago for the first time in probably maybe 2 years, and only 2 years. But I was coming down
Nolensville Road.
Nolensville Road, and I'm thinking, where's the old mill?
Yeah.
And then it's sandwiched between buildings
That's
now.
right. And their governing body over there, the mayor and the alderman, and they're beginning to put a police force together. Their fire division. I mean, their taxes that they're generating mostly is used for planning and how to do that planning over there. But we built a high school over there. We built a few years ago. We built a school on Sunset Road. It was a K-8. One of the first, other than Hillsboro, but one of the first new ones that had been built.
Yeah.
We took the old elementary school and turned it into a rec department, and then we built another high school, elementary, and a middle school, and it's on fire over there. Spring Hill hasn't slowed down. Franklin hasn't slowed down.
And Fairview is starting to pick up.
And Fairview, in fact, some of their leadership were in my office this week on some topics, and particularly in the area of parks and recreation. So there's virtually, we haven't mentioned Thompson Station, but even Thompson Station is beginning
Kind of
to.
sandwiched there and almost forgotten, but it's
right.
bursting.
You and I were talking before we went on the show. We've got about 221,000 people in our community. At the turn of the last decade, at 2010, we had 183,000 people. Now we're at 220+ thousand people. We've grown almost 40,000 people in less than 8 years.
It's just incredible.
And a lot of that growth, the fastest part of our growth, of course, is the youth, 0 to about 19. But an interesting statistic is that our senior population, which I am a member of,
Not me.
I didn't call that out, to call you out, but that population is growing at a very amazing rate. And a lot of that is you and I have the luxury of having some grandchildren. And grandparents,
Want to be close.
they want to be close to their grandchildren. So we're seeing a lot of people that are coming here. Our 2017, our #1 state for, I guess the word is migration, that's coming from another state, was California.
I believe that.
And and our next state was like Ohio and Indiana. They were real close in there. There's still a lot of automobile people moving here, entrepreneurs, music, but #1, without any question, is healthcare. So as these people come in from other areas, they do, in this state, nothing to do with our county, but our state does not have a state income tax. There are higher values
Right.
in California. You can have a modest home of $3,000 to $2,800, $3,000, sell it, come here, and almost pay cash for it. And then I hear the average values of homes in our county, new home, all across the board, is right at $500,000, $500,000.
Yeah.
Well, that's not too affordable, it doesn't
No.
seem to me. However, that's what the market is driving, and we're a market-driven, real estate's a market-driven industry.
And it's when you have more need than you have availability, that drives the price up.
I probably won't go a week that I won't run into a developer or home builder, and the problem is exactly what you described. It's called capacity. There's not enough capacity. There's not enough lots that they can be building new homes on. Now, you'd say, well, Mayor, I know they've got a whole subdivision they're building. but in relationship
To the growth.
to the growth.
Yeah.
So that's why the resale homes values have continued to climb upward, because the new home, usually new home prices are higher than an existing. If you could build the same home 10 years later, you're going to get more out of the new home. Warranties, material costs. Material costs, labor costs are just out of they're awful. I mean,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying, one of my dear friends is the Harp with True Value, and Shelley and Mike. I mean, they're having to sell that lumber and the materials that go with that lumber, or any Husky, any of these other large
Right.
lumber companies, but the prices of raw goods have gone up, and they will continue to climb. And if you get into the commercial side where they use a lot of steel, then you're going to see a higher cost of steel. So it's unfortunate, but affordable housing in Williamson County is almost non-existent without the aid of some of these 501 Habitat,
Right.
some of the Hard Bargain and some of those. But a young couple getting married, it's very difficult for them to move into our area unless you got two families working.
Yeah, and even that, I mean, like, I know that's happened with my own family. Our daughters, her husband and kids are living in Burns because they can't afford Williamson County. And, I mean, that's sad, but we've dealt with it. And
Well, I think all of us, even when I moved here in the 80s, a house was not what it is today.
yeah,
But neither were wages.
yeah,
And I remember thinking, have I lost my mind buying this new house? And how am I going to pay for it? Just like the kids, just like my children and your children are doing today. And so there are sacrifices you have to make. And but overall, the job market, there's more good jobs here now than there were
yeah, and
20
that is
30
one
years
thing.
ago.
I mean, there's a lot of jobs, but most of them are good jobs. They're not just the low-paying waitressing and retail and stuff like that. They are good-paying jobs, which drives the retail.
Drives that, and people coming from other parts of the country where our prices to them seems low.
Yeah,
And so they can drive that market price up a little bit more. So once you get here, though, I often have said that once you live in the county, our taxes are very low, lowest of any of the southern tier counties, and we're in the we out of population size of 100,000 people or greater, we are the lowest county in terms of property taxes. So the commission, the leadership, for many, many years has concentrated and focused on keeping taxes low. Now, the fees,
oh, yeah.
you're going to have to pay a little bit more to get to move in.
Which also drives the cost of the house, but
Drives the cost.
it's all, again, what you need to do to keep the taxes low.
The other thing we sometimes fail to realize that as our senior population, mature population is following their children and those grandchildren, they're moving into some of our senior living places. And if you've not driven around Franklin and Brentwood, even Spring
Popping
Hill,
up all over the place.
there's quite a few of them. There was a large company that looked at our area, Franklin area, 5, 6, 8 years ago, and it was called Dale Webb, and they have a very substantial presence in Mount Juliet and several other points, but they couldn't find what they wanted in Williamson County to make them, I'm sure, the numbers work, and so they built over just in Murray County, which if you're not having children going to school, then you don't mind living over there where things are a little bit,
You still have access to,
and you can have access. And once you get your children out of your house, and you're not worried about public education, then if you can just get in a proximity, I never had that luxury when I left home. I just left home. I never thought about, I guess, going back, and today my home is Williamson County.
Yeah,
and
mine, I've often said it's the place now that I've lived the longest during my life, and I've always, once we got settled in, it's the only place I feel like it's home.
Well, it's a great place to live, a great place to work, worship, raise your family, and there's an opportunity now for your children and our grandchildren to come back
Yeah.
and find a job.
Yeah,
They
now
don't
they-
have to go to the big cities to do it.
Right.
Now, they can choose to do that.
And right now, it seems like that's what a lot of young people are doing. But I'm noticing also, once these young people have chosen to go to the big cities, settle down, find somebody that they care about and want to get married, they move away. They need more space. They're thinking family and.
I mean, now we're getting into philosophy, but I
Yeah,
think
but-
all of us have gone through that.
Oh, yeah.
And
Well.
until you start having children, you can kind of spend money the way you want to.
That's true.
And once you,
Speaking of spending money, talk about we've talked about education, but there are a lot of other things that the budget that less than 30% that's left after you do the education part is split among all kinds of different departments. And again, Williamson County has always tried to keep government interference and government small. But still, there are things that.
yeah, as we continue to grow, you have more. We had a show here recently about our animal center, and Andrea Johnson, who's just doing a fantastic job. But as our population grows by 40 and 50 and 60,000 people, your population of animals grows
Right.
likewise. And we see that same thing in the law enforcement community, public safety community. 5 years ago, you were referring to, 5 years ago, we had maybe a half a dozen student resource officers, SROs. Today, we have a squadron of 60. So in 5 years, we've grown that much. 5 years ago was also that period of time that Sandy Hook, the bad
Up in Connecticut.
up in Connecticut happened, and this community, the law enforcement community, jumped all over that and said, we have got to protect our children. Why? They're our strongest asset, they're our largest asset, and that's what the people expect, particularly in public education. But the funding for the SROs is on the law enforcement side. And the law enforcement side, we're now up to about 60 people. That's a very substantial budget. That whole project is overseen by the sheriff, Jeff Long, does a great job, but it requires a lot of training. You have to be law enforcement to begin with. You have to be accredited in that, and then you have to have special training to be an SRO. So those men and women that are in every school, including Franklin Special, every one of them have at least one. And if the school has a population size of 1,500 or more, then you have two. So there's.
And each one of those officers has a car.
Each one has a car, each one of them has the vest, all of the equipment, the radio, everything that goes with that operation. It does cost money, and that's why you want to have strong fund balances. You want to have money in the bank so you can pay for some of them. So I'm not complaining about it. I'm just simply saying a lot of people don't realize that as your community grows, you'll also have extra costs that go with that population growth. Certainly, you have them in transportation. Everybody sees that.
Right.
But you may not see them at your animal center. You may not see them in the law enforcement division.
And then it also affects the court system, 911, the EMTs and EMS, the hospital, first responders, fire departments. I mean, all those, and while Williamson County doesn't, we have a volunteer rescue squad, the county helps out in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we don't make payments on salary. We build the buildings, fire trucks, the equipment, those things. Lots and lots of training goes into that.
And you provide some equipment.
We do provide a substantial amount of equipment. like over the ambulances, the state law does not require the county nor the hospital to have an ambulance, but it makes sense to have that. And so ambulances aren't cheap. They're about $400,000 to $500,000 each, and we've got 8 or 10 of those. Plus, you have to have backup. They break down just like your car, have a flat, and you got to have one on standby. With the community, it tells us that that's one of the more important things. You know, not just for people my age that are having health issues or have a heart attack. That's important. I want an ambulance, so when it comes to me, pick me up, that they can start treating me immediately, getting me in that ambulance. It's just a roving hospital.
Right.
And it's not just to pick up and deliver you where you want to go. But those are very expensive. Equip them, and there's over 100 people that work in the ambulance division of the hospital. 365.
Yeah, and they have to be trained. They're not quite doctors, but they have to be trained to either take orders from a doctor that they're in contact with, or just understand what's going on and react.
It's response time. And when one ambulance goes to a particular area, then you have to move your whole fleet around to pick up the slack for the one that picked up that person that delivers them to Williamson Medical Center or to a hospital that they so desire. And so the others have to fill in and backfill.
And all that strategics takes people
and
too.
IT, I mean, our whole electronic system now over at our 911 center, I mean, everything's GPS. In other words, that simply means that they're marked. And when that ambulance or fire truck or police officer's out on a call, vehicle stop, doing service, whatever it is, there are people in there that keep that flow going, and everything's identified and marked so that we know where everyone is while they're in county property. And it's very sophisticated.
Yes. And we are glad to have all those services, even though we don't, and they cost money.
I do.
And we'll see you again next time on County Happenings, and we don't cost any money.
Military life is rewarding, but it isn't always easy.
Managing the stress can affect even the strongest warrior.
But I will stay mission ready.
I will
keep my mind and body fit.
Talk to my chaplain.
Be there to listen.
I will.
Know the signs.
Seek care early.
Talk to my healthcare provider. Be there to help, listen, and get you through this.
I will motivate others.
Strive for progress, not perfection.
I will be there for my buddies, no matter what.
Be there for our veterans, no matter what.
And I've got your back too.
I will keep our family safe while you're away.
I will think of you every night.
We're in this together.
I got this.
I got this.
I got this. Take the first step.
There's no better time than now.
Reaching out is a sign of strength. Visit realwarriors.net or call 866-966-1020.
And Morning Light Holds by Catherine Moore. How beautiful and blue the morning, hatching in this hour, steady against the breeze, the wrens flit from pot to post.